Hello again, Ms. Leader here. Remember, you're going to be watching this video. While you watch it, you will take notes in your guided notes that is on the class Padlet. Then you will click through to the end of the lesson in Connexus to take the quick check. You do not need to read the lesson in Connexus. All right, so let's jump right in. This video is going to be about the Ohio Judicial Branch. Okay, so this here is a picture of the 7 justices on the Ohio Supreme Court. Okay, I'm not going to tell you all the names, but I am going to point out this man up here in the upper right-hand corner is named Pat DeWine, and he happens to be the son of Governor DeWine. So sometimes I think it's important to just remember those things. All right, let's go ahead and continue on to our first slide here. This is a picture of the Ohio Supreme Court building. It's actually a really cool building. You can't see it in this picture here, but there is a giant statue of a gavel out front that is really neat. And again, I highly recommend you check it out if you're in Columbus. So the Ohio Supreme Court, and more generally the Ohio Judicial Branch, their job is to interpret the state laws, okay? So remember, the Ohio legislature, they make the laws, they write the laws, they pass the laws, and then the Ohio Judicial Branch will tell the courts and other citizens how to interpret the laws that are passed by the legislature, okay? So this is the same that we see at the federal level. One of the big differences here is that at the state level, we see a lot more courts whose job it is to try criminal cases and then punish the people that break laws, okay? Now, they don't do the actual punishment per se, but they are handing down sentences, okay? The Ohio Judicial Branch handles both civil and criminal cases, and we're going to talk about the difference in just 1 minute. There is also a state Supreme Court, which I've already mentioned, and as pictured on the last slide, there are 7 members of that. But there are other courts in the Ohio Judicial Branch. It is not just the state Supreme Court. And we have a bunch of different courts, but specifically that state Supreme Court, they hear appeals, and they also do have some original jurisdiction, but it's pretty limited. Okay, so remember, original jurisdiction is that a case is heard there first. So mostly they're hearing appeals cases, okay, which means that it's already been heard in another case and it's worked its way up. We're going to talk a little bit more about appeals cases in a minute. So this is a nice little infographic that demonstrates the difference between criminal law and civil law, okay? So criminal law is a violation of a crime, okay? So a thief takes Chris's wallet. Then the police will arrest the thief based off of evidence. Then the thief is held in jail. Then there will be a trial, okay? And then there's judges and lawyers, okay? And then if found guilty, the criminal is either fined or sentenced to jail. Okay, so that's criminal law. Civil law would be, so for example, Matt damages Chris's car. Okay, there's a car accident, right? Chris decides to file a lawsuit because he wants to make sure that Matt pays for the repairs on his vehicle. Okay, no one is going to jail because Matt is remaining free. Okay, so we can see here. And then when it gets to the courts, again, both people are hiring lawyers. No one is appointed a lawyer by the state because there's no, remember, it isn't someone broke the law. Okay. And then the punishments generally are limited to money. No one is ever going to go to jail for a civil dispute. Okay, so that's the big difference between criminal law and civil law. And the state court systems deal in both criminal and civil. All right, so state court systems, this is a really nice little infographic that show you how the courts work. So at the very bottom, these are the lowest courts. We have some mayor's courts, and not all cities have mayor's courts. This one's fairly rare, okay? Which is why we see this dotted line right here, because not all cities have mayor courts, okay? But all counties have these court of common pleas, okay? And we also have these municipal courts, okay? So bigger cities, especially like the city of Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Akron, Toledo, they're all going to have city courts, okay? But, like, for example, Plain City, where I live, there's no Plain City court, okay, because it's a small village, all right? Then we also have Court of Claims, okay? So this is often all civil stuff, okay? If you're suing someone, a claims court, like, for example, a landlord is trying to kick a tenant out of their apartment, that would be claims courts. So again, it's not necessarily like violating a law, but they're trying to make the justice system force someone's hand. Okay, that's courts of claim. All right. Then we have the courts of common pleas. All right. And I guess I should be a little bit clearer about the courts of claims. That's not the only thing they do. Okay. But court of common pleas have a bunch of different types of courts they're going to have. They have probate, which would be after someone dies and there's a lot of legal stuff that has to happen with the property and the assets, so money, bank accounts, that kind of stuff that the person had. Probate deals with that. The juvenile is dealing with people under the age of 18. Domestic relations would be things like marriage and family court, custody battles, and then general is pretty much everything else. Okay, so general is what you often think the most about court. If you're thinking like Law and Order where someone's trying a case, okay, that's what you're thinking of, this general division. So that will happen. Those types of cases will be tried in all courts of common pleas, which are in each of the 88 counties in Ohio. Okay, then above that, we have our Court of Appeals. So there are 12 districts throughout Ohio, and each district has a 3-judge panel. Okay, so not a jury typically. It is heard by 3 judges because remember, an appeals court is the only purpose of an appeals court. They're trying to decide, did that lower court where the first trial happened, did they follow all of the laws and the procedure, and then did that person get a fair trial? It's the only thing they're deciding. They're not deciding guilt or innocence. They're saying, did that court follow the proper law and procedure? Okay. And then at the very top, we have Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court in Ohio, which is a Chief Justice and 6 justices. Okay. So as I mentioned, these are what, this is the typical structure is outlined right over here. Okay. And just a reminder, municipal means city, essentially. Okay. City, town, village. That's what municipal means. All right. Let's continue on. So there are different types of laws in the state of Ohio. First, we have constitutional law. So constitutional law are the things that are in the Ohio Constitution, okay? That's what constitutional law is, all right? That one's pretty simple. What's in the state constitution? That's constitutional law. Then we have statutory law. So those are the laws that are passed by the General Assembly, also other local governments, like, say, the city of Columbus or counties and townships. Okay, so that's statutory law. So things like, for example, recently the city of Columbus banned flavored tobacco like menthol cigarettes. That would be a city statute. Okay. Then we have administrative law, which are issued by regulatory bodies. So Ohio has its own EPA, the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, and those types of organizations will tell the Ohio citizens you can or can't do certain things, and that's what we call administrative law, okay? They're not necessarily making law, but the rules that these bodies have are they have almost the same weight as a law because the Ohio General Assembly has given these regulatory agencies, these people that run these agencies, the Ohio General Assembly has given them the power to do so, okay? We have common law, which is essentially like unwritten laws that are made by judges. So when a judge rules in a certain way, then generally other judges rule in a similar way if it is a similar situation. And that is so that we have the consistency to know that, like, everyone gets the same type of punishment, if that makes sense. We want to try and keep things fair no matter who you are. Doesn't mean that this always happens, but that's the idea behind common law. So a real quick little rundown of how do you get on the Supreme Court and who is on the Supreme Court, okay? So as I said, it's 7 justices. This is the Supreme Court Chief Justice. Her name is Sharon Kennedy. They serve 6-year terms, and remember, they are elected, okay? So remember, at the federal level, these justices are chosen by the president and confirmed by the Senate, but not at the state level. At the state level, they are elected by the voters, okay? And then they get to serve for 6-year terms. Governors can appoint these justices if there is a vacancy in between elections. So let's say a justice dies or retires early, the governor can fill their spot until an election can be held. They must be a lawyer with at least 6 years of experience practicing law. Okay, so that's actually more requirements than we have at the federal level. And I actually didn't put this on here, but there's also an age cap. Okay, our previous Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice, was a woman by the name of Maureen O'Connor. And the reason why she's not on the Supreme Court anymore is because she aged out. You cannot run for the state of Ohio Supreme Court if you are over the age of 75. So now our new current Chief Justice is a woman by the name of Sharon Kennedy.